The following is a production of Stevenson Media. Want to tip the host? Just scan the QR code or click the link in the description. Get a free Houston Sports State of the Union podcast t-shirt with a donation of $50 or more.
This is the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, the president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson.
My goodness, thank you so much. Please be seated, my fellow Houstonians. Welcome to this special Houston Sports State of the Union address for the week of December 8th. I am the self-appointed president of Houston Sports Nation, Nick Stevenson. As always, there are a million different things you could be doing this evening, but you chose to spend a little bit of time with me, and I appreciate it. On tonight's show, the Houston Rockets are headed to Las Vegas for the Emirates NBA Cup semifinal versus the Oklahoma City Thunder. Is this as good as it's going to get for the Rockets, or is this showing that this team has grown up and they're ready to make some noise in the playoffs? We will talk about it. Our Houston Texans are getting ready to enter the gauntlet portion of their schedule. 3 games in 10 days starting this Sunday versus the Miami Dolphins at the Crib and NRG Stadium. Will we see the same old Texans coming out of the bye, or will they have a renewed sense of urgency, a renewed energy, hopefully a renewed offense? We will find out, and I want to discuss that with you guys today. Also, if you haven't heard the news, the Houston Astros traded away Kyle Tucker today to the Chicago Cubs. What does that mean for our Houston Astros moving forward? I want to discuss all of this and more on this 37th episode of the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Once again, thank you guys so much for joining me. I would like to remind you of the ways you can support the show. One of them you are doing right now. You are listening, you are watching. Hopefully by now you are sharing with your friends and your family. Please remind them to follow, like, subscribe wherever they get their podcast fix. If you like to watch your podcast, you can find me on X, you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on Twitch, and you can find me on Facebook as well. So if you guys are interested in watching the show, at the first week of the month, I do Friday shows for first and last week of every month. And then in those 2 middle weeks, I think I said that backwards. I'm sorry. The first and last week of the month, I do Wednesday shows. And then the 2 middle weeks, the shows are on Friday. That's not confusing at all, I'm sure. Look, one day I'll be doing these shows full time, and then it won't be very confusing because hopefully I'll be with you guys 5 days a week. And I'm working on it. So if you want that to happen, please continue to do what you're doing, supporting by watching, by sharing with your friends, telling people about the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. If you would like to contribute to the show financially, I have a QR code that's in the corner here if you're watching the video and you're somewhere where you can scan that code. If you're unable to scan that code, don't worry. I have a link that will be in the description of this video so that you can leave a tip to the show. Everything you leave will go directly back into me bringing you guys content for this Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. Another way that you can support the show is I will put affiliate links in the description of the video you're watching or the audio that you're listening to. Those affiliate links are Amazon links to both Houston Sports fan gear and all of the equipment that I am using to bring you this fine podcast. If you guys purchase anything from those links, then I will get a commission from that. And that's another way to contribute to the show. Also, I have sponsorship spots available if you're interested in sponsoring Houston Sports State of the Union podcast or the Twin Toros podcast, which is a Houston Texans show that I do in collaboration with ESPN and Ruben Calvillo of 713 Houston Sports. We actually dropped an episode earlier today. You guys go check that out. But if you're interested in sponsoring either this show or the Twin Toros podcast, or hell, why not both? Please reach out to me at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com. It would be my honor to represent your business, and I would love for us to grow our businesses together. So those are the ways you can support the show. But if you're watching right now this evening on the live, I appreciate it so much. I would love to have you guys enter the conversation. So I will open up a live chat, maybe even take some calls. I'm down for it, man. I just want to talk Houston sports. We're going to start tonight with the state of the Houston Rockets. Okay, the Houston Rockets finally defeated the Golden State Warriors. Can we make some noise for that? The Houston Rockets had lost 15 straight games to the Golden State Warriors. That's going all the way back to 2020 before COVID. James Harden and Russell Westbrook were on the team the last time the Rockets had beaten the Warriors. And let's keep it real. Even when the Rockets were at their height, the Warriors were the bane of all Houston Rockets fans' existence. We all know what happened in the 2019 playoffs. Listen, man, if you're a Houston Rockets fan, a true Houston Rockets fan, I'm not talking to any of those people who maybe used to be Rockets fans and then became Warriors fans later. But true Houston Rockets fans know that the Golden State Warriors have been probably the Rockets' number one hated rival, at least in recent history. I know that we don't like the Spurs, we don't like the Mavericks, but in recent history, it has been the Golden State Warriors. So the Rockets finally break that win streak. And what better time, that losing streak to the Warriors. And what better time to do that than in the first round, knockout round of the NBA Cup this season. It was a 91-90 victory. And the game was very, very typical Rockets of this season. A lot of defense, a lot of missed shots, a lot of fight, a lot of heart. And look, man, holding the Warriors to 90 points ain't nothing to shake a stick at. As frustrating as the Rockets offense can be at times, and trust me, when they go into these lulls, it is frustrating. But it's just hard to not love this team because of everything that they represent, what they stand for. They're just tough-nosed. They play really hard defense. They're not selfish. Even though the ball sometimes can get sticky and doesn't move, nobody really tries to play hero ball. I think sometimes they're a little bit too indecisive on whether they want to make the pass or be aggressive. I think there's times that actually some Houston Rockets, namely Jalen Green, I think could stand to be a little bit more aggressive than he is. But during those times, that's when the Rockets hang their hat on the defensive end of the ball. And I've been trying to figure out what team in NBA history this team kind of reminds me of. And call me crazy, and I'm not saying this team reminds me of the 2004 Detroit Pistons. I'm not saying they're going to win an NBA championship this year. But what I am saying is that the grit, the toughness, the slug it out type of basketball that they play. Now listen, even the Detroit Pistons had some better shooters and some more consistent shooters on their team. I mean, you had Rip Hamilton on that team, who was a very good shooter. You had Chauncey Billups at the point guard, who was a pretty decent scorer. Dare I say, yeah, he's probably a better scorer than Fred VanVleet. But he was also a very good floor general, which is, to me, Fred VanVleet is the Chauncey Billups of this Houston Rockets team. Jalen Green, when he's hot, can be that Rip Hamilton of the Houston Rockets, because defensively, he has been incredible this year. I believe he has like a 102 defensive rating. He's been really, really good on defense, which the entire team, for the most part, has been really good on defense. That's why they're the second best defensive team in the league. And that's how you hold the Warriors to 91 points. Now, the Warriors, they're going to get hot from time to time, and they did in that third quarter. But the Rockets just gutted it out, man. Now, there was at least 2 or 3 shot clock violations where the Houston Rockets just played defense all the way to the 24-second shot clock buzzer went off. There were several other instances where they weren't shot clock violations, but the Warriors were heaving up bad shots at the buzzer, and they were clearly being frustrated by the Rockets defense. And for Rockets fans who watch this team under Steven Silas, that is so refreshing to see that, because there is nothing more frustrating than seeing a team go out there and just give half effort. And we saw that so many times from the Houston Rockets. They would not give full effort under Steven Silas. That has not been a problem under Ime Udoka. They were frustrating the Warriors. Now, speaking of frustrating the Warriors, let's go ahead and talk about all the whining that the Golden State Warriors did after this game about the refereeing. It's so satisfying. And if you're a Houston Rockets fan and you've been through all the wars that the Rockets have had with these Warriors, and you know all of the terrible officiating that has gone on in the history of these two teams, it is so satisfying. Look at the look on these guys' faces. For the listening audience, you are going to have to bear with me. I am showing reaction of Steve Kerr and of Stephen Curry. The Stephen Curry reaction is after they lost. You can see there the score 91-90. Stephen Curry just can't believe that he lost to the Rockets. It's been a long time since he did it, so I understand the look on his face. But the look on Steve Kerr's face also, this is right after they called a foul with about 3 seconds to go on Jonathan Kuminga because he fouled Jalen Green. Jalen Green stole the ball. Jonathan Kuminga dove on top of him and basically put him in a headlock, and they called the foul. Now, I can understand the frustration of most NBA fans, and I even understand the frustration of Steve Kerr in that moment, because that is a foul call that is never called. And that's the problem that I have with this. It's a problem I have with NBA officiating and officiating, period. We should not be mad that a referee made the correct call with 3 seconds left to go. What we should be mad about is that we're surprised that an NBA referee made the correct call with 3 seconds to go. Because I don't care if it's the beginning of the game, 3 seconds into the game, or 3 seconds remaining in the game. If a foul is a foul, it should be called. But we're so used to them not calling those fouls. Why? Oh, well, we don't want the referees to decide the game. Then don't foul. Jonathan Kuminga did not have to do what he did to Jalen Green. Jalen Green was on the floor with the ball in his hand. At best, he's going to call a timeout, maybe with a couple of seconds left. And do you have any faith that anybody on the Houston Rockets in that moment was going to be able to get a clean look and make it with less than 2 seconds to go? Probably not. The Rockets were horrible offensively for the majority of that game. Here's my problem, though. Like, the Warriors have gotten so many calls in their favor. We all remember the regular season game back in 2018, 2019, where James Harden had to put his Superman cape on and save the Rockets from the referees because with just seconds left to go in that game, Kevin Durant tries to save a ball out of bounds. I should have downloaded the picture and put it up. You guys know what I'm talking about, though. He tries to save a ball from going out of bounds. He's literally like 2 feet out of bounds when he saves this ball. There's a referee standing right next to him. No call. We don't want to talk about the playoffs, the year that Chris Paul got hurt and the Rockets were up 3-2 and then ended up losing game 6 on the road and game 7 at home. The Rockets had double-digit leads in both of those games. And if you go back, those games are on YouTube right now. When you're done watching this show, I just want you to Google or YouTube search Rockets versus Warriors 2018 playoffs. Is it 2018 or 2019? I keep getting that confused. It was the 2018-2019 year, if I'm not mistaken. You can see the moment in both game 6 and 7 where the referees take over. Double-digit lead for the Rockets. All of a sudden, they're in the penalty in the third quarter within seconds. And it's just so obvious, man. And the Warriors have been getting favoritism for as long as I can remember. So seeing them make this face is so satisfying. Oh, it is beyond satisfying. I can't tell you how much I just reveled in the fact. And, I actually like Steve Kerr. I think Steve Kerr is a pretty cool dude. I like Stephen Curry. Stephen Curry, other than the antics when, he does the put people to sleep after hitting a big shot. Yeah, if you're not a fan of his team, then that'll make you hate him. But he doesn't really make himself a villain. He's got a pretty face. He seems to be a pretty nice guy. He's not very intimidating. He's like almost average man size, so you don't really want to hate on him. He's not like a Adonis looking type player like the Greek Freak or LeBron James. Like, he just seems like a hooper, a dude who loves the ball. And he's probably the greatest shooter of all time. But he plays for a team that I hate. And one of the main reasons I hate that team is because of him and because they've been so good. But also because, let's keep it real, they have gotten a lot of good calls or a lot of bad calls go their way. And you know what? It was your time. It was your time. Not that it was a bad call. The 2-minute report came out, which if you're an NBA fan, you really, really hate the last 2-minute report, especially when something happens in the last 2 minutes that cost your team the game. And then the NBA admits, you know what? yeah, that was a mess up. We shouldn't have called that, or we should have called this. But the last 2-minute report confirmed that was a foul on Jonathan Kuminga. And as I said before, what we should be upset about is not the fact that they made the right call in that moment. It's that we're so used to them not making the right call in that moment that them making the right call pisses us off. Definitely pissed off Steve Kerr. He went off in the media. Steph Curry went off in the media. Listen, man, the Houston Rockets were down by 7 points with 1 minute and 25 seconds to go. The Warriors turned the ball over 3 times in the last 2 minutes of the game. And they didn't run any real offense other than Steph Curry, shimmy move, jack up a 3. That's contested. And the Rockets do a good job of contesting shots. Also, a foul that was missed on the last play of the game. The only reason that there was a scrum for the ball in the first place is because after Stephen Curry missed a 3-point shot, Alperen Şengün had an opportunity to grab a rebound. He got fouled, and that's the reason he didn't get the rebound, and that's the reason there was a scrum for the ball in the first place. Completely missed. Not to mention, lastly, I'm going to say this, the last play of the game where Pazinski got his shot blocked by Jabari Smith Jr., so fitting that the Rockets would win this game on a defensive play. But all of the whining that the Warriors are doing, go back and watch the game. The Warriors got 7 seconds to inbound that play. You're only supposed to get 5. As soon as he blows the whistle, count it off with it. 7 seconds they were given to get the ball in. And the Rockets' inbound defense was so good. The best shot they could get was a contested shot, not even by one of their best players, and it was blocked by Jabari Smith Jr. The Rockets deserve to win the game. I don't care what Steve Kerr said. He basically tried to make it seem like the referees handed the Rockets this win. They earned it, and they've been earning all of the wins that they've gotten so far. And that's why I'm so happy that they are going to be in the NBA Cup. For those of you who don't like the NBA Cup, you probably just don't like the NBA. Let's face it, NBA fans, the NBA regular season was getting boring. It was getting redundant, and it needed something to make the games more interesting. And I believe, as an NBA fan, someone who basketball is my favorite sport, I believe that successfully the NBA Cup has made the regular season more interesting. And what it does, since every team 1 through 30 has an opportunity to participate in it, then you get some teams like the Rockets who, let's face it, they're not going to win a championship this year. They might not even win a playoff series. But you get teams like them, like the Atlanta Hawks, who are going to be taking on the Bucks on the East side. They have an opportunity to show, hey, we're doing some things, we're growing, we're on our way. No, maybe we're not going to win a chip this year, but watch out because we're coming. And that's what I love about it, that any team can win the thing, and it means something. I'm sorry, if you're a competitor, if there's a trophy to be won, you should want to win that trophy. I've never competed on that level. Obviously, I've never been a professional athlete, but I'm a competitor. I don't care if we're playing Monopoly. I don't care if we're playing dominoes. I don't care if we're playing cards. I don't care if we're playing throw trash in the trash can. I want to win. So if there's a trophy to be won and you're a competitor, then you should be trying to win this thing. And I think that last year, a lot of the old heads were making fun of it. The Shaquille O'Neals of the world, the Charles Barkleys of the world, they were making fun of the NBA Cup, but that's just because they're old heads who don't like anything new. I think it's really cool. I hope the Rockets will win the thing. It's going to be tough. They got to play Oklahoma City again. They have beaten Oklahoma City. They actually just recently beat them on the road by 3 points. But OKC is legit, and they're probably the favorites to win this thing. But the winner of Oklahoma City and Houston will take on the winner of the Milwaukee Bucks and the Atlanta Hawks. And honestly, if the Rockets beat OKC, I think they have a great chance against either one of those teams. The Bucks barely beat the Rockets by a point on some questionable calls in that game as well. And there were also, to be honest with you, there was some missed opportunities by the Rockets, who continue to struggle on offense at the wrong time. In that Bucks game, they just went cold for like the last 4 minutes of the game. But I'm really enjoying watching this Houston Rockets team. They're obviously doing things we have not seen them do in a really long time. They're defending. They're having fun. They share the ball. There's 7 people averaging double figures on this team. They're young. They're athletic. I don't want to see them make any moves. The good news is that when Rafael Stone was asked by the media earlier this week about some of the trade rumors going on, he says, look, it's my job to listen, but I would be shocked if we made any moves, which in GM speak, you would, in most cases, expect within days of them making that statement, they make some type of move. But I really think the Rockets like what they got. I like what they got. I think they should stick with it, at least through this season. I've told you guys multiple times that I feel like one thing that's missing in sports is continuity. It's patience. Let these young guys grow together. Let some of these guys who are struggling to shoot see if they can figure it out. Let them keep working on it. Jabari Smith Jr., I was just talking to my good friend Christopher Lewis last night. We were talking a little Rockets, and he said, in his opinion, Jabari Smith Jr. is the wild card, the X factor on this team. And I agree with him. When Jabari plays well, I've said this multiple times, when he plays well, the Rockets win. And with his ability to defend all 5 positions, when he's shooting with confidence, when he's attacking with confidence, I think it's a little bit tough for him because in college, the offense was run through him. This Houston Rockets offense is not really run through him. It's really the only person this offense is really run through would be Alperen Şengün. Everybody else kind of just gets their shots in the flow of the offense. But I like that. And that's why I said this team reminds me of that Detroit Pistons team because they didn't have one superstar. They just had a bunch of really good players who shared the ball, who played great defense. And they won a championship that they probably shouldn't have won. But hey, it's in the books. They won it. So I say the state of the Houston Rockets is extremely strong. Now, let's talk about our Houston Texans. As I stated in the intro, the gauntlet begins. A murderer's row schedule coming up. Not only because of the competition and who they're playing, but because of the fact of how many games they are playing in such a short amount of time. You guys heard me say this. The NBA is the NFL, they're all hypocrites. Don't pretend that you care about player safety when you have multiple teams in the next couple of weeks who will be playing 3 football games in 10 days. I believe it's the Texans, the Chiefs, the Ravens, and the Steelers. Those are the 4 that I know about. There might be more. But our Houston Texans are going to be playing 3 football games in 10 days. And to me, the most important of the next 3 games in those 10 days is the one coming up this Sunday versus the Dolphins. The reason I say that is because we all know that going into the bye week off of a not very convincing win against the Jacksonville Jaguars and Mac Jones, where we saw Mac Jones and the Jaguars take the Texans to the brink. We've known all season long that we're not, as Texans fans, we're not really happy or excited about the Houston Texans offense. The offensive line has been a mess. I said before, if you told me at the beginning of the season, through 14 weeks, the Texans would be 8-5, I would still take it. I predicted that best case scenario, they would win 12 games. So in that scenario, they'd have to win out. I guess that's still on the table. I don't think that's going to happen. But my worst case scenario is that they would win 10 games, which if they split the last 4 games of the season, then they'll win 10 games again. But it's not really about the record. It's about how they've gotten there. Obviously, the offense is not great. So now that you've had a bye week, much long-awaited bye week, the Houston Texans have an opportunity to come out with a different type of energy. There's not going to be any coaching moves. We learned that early on. Bobby Slowick is safe, despite the fact that many people wanted him replaced, including my fellow Twin Toro, Ruben Calavillo. But there's an opportunity for the Texans to come out here and set the tone for the next 3 games. The Miami Dolphins are a good football team. They're not a great football team. They have great players. They have a potentially great coach who has struggled a little bit, at least on the offensive side of the ball. And that's what these 2 teams kind of remind me of one another. Both teams were expected to have dominant offenses that were among the top offenses in the league. And up to this point, they just haven't really lived up to that billing. Now, as Ruben pointed out, in the Twin Toros today, ever since Tua came back from, being on concussion protocol, their offense has actually been pretty good. While the Texans were on the bye week, they hung up 32, 34 points and an overtime win. So they're starting to figure out things on the offensive end. And then they've been a pretty good defense all season. So it's time for the Texans to do something offensively. I expect the defense to play well, even without Azeez Al-Shaair. And unfortunately, they're going to have to do it without Jalen Petrie, who we learned after his shoulder injury, he's going to be out for the season because he's going to be getting surgery on that shoulder. However, I do like Jimmy Ward playing the role of Jalen Petrie, as he has been. Now, the onus is going to be on young Kalen Bullock and probably Eric Murray and some other combination of people playing safety to keep Tyreek Hill from getting behind the defense and burning everyone, which at this point, we know it's going to happen. How many times can you limit it to happening? Can we just get one or two big plays? Unfortunately, in the past, before the bye week, this season, one or two big plays has been enough to beat the Texans because the offense hasn't been able to do anything, especially in the second half. So what you hope is that the defense doesn't have to be perfect, that they can allow a couple of those big plays because they're inevitably going to happen. And what you hope is that this offense comes out with a renewed sense of purpose. I don't know if they're going to call plays differently in different order, or if they just needed to rest their minds, their bodies, their spirits. But all eyes is going to be on the offense and specifically, once again, the offensive line. Kenyon Green practiced yesterday in real time. I'm going to let you guys know if he practiced today. Sorry to do this live again. I know you guys love it. Love live radio when I'm looking things up in real time. But give me just a moment if you'll bear with me. He was a full participant. Everyone on the injury list, other than Juice Scruggs, who we already knew wasn't going to play, was a full participant and practiced today. That is good news. Christian Harris was a full participant. That's good news because we're going to need all hands on deck. I don't know how much I expect Christian Harris to play. And even when he does play, how effective is he going to be? The dude hasn't played football in almost a calendar year. But yeah, to me, I think we know the defense is going to do what the defense is going to do. They have played without Azeez Al-Shaair before. They've played without Danico Autry. They've played without Will Anderson Jr., and they've still produced for the most part. So all eyes is on this offense. As my buddy Ruben keeps saying, it is really the only thing holding this team back. For me, the keys on offense are, once again, come out with a new sense of urgency, come out with some confidence. I would love to see CJ Stroud come out and just start slinging that ball around. Don't worry about the picks. Just play ball. That's what I want to see. But also, Joe Mixon, you cannot ignore him. He has been the MVP of this team. Feed that man the rock. But for God's sakes, block for him. Which is one of the reasons I think if Kenyon Green is healthy, because of his ability to run block, because D'Amico Ryans sticks with his guys, that's probably going to be the dude who plays if he's healthy. They bring in this guy, Zach Thomas. I don't know a whole lot about him. I was on a Twitter chat. I guess you can call it X chat now, where not Sean Pendergast, Seth Payne joined the chat, and we got a chance to kind of pick his brain, him being a former, football player, defensive tackle for the Texans and the Jaguars. We got to pick his brain a little bit about, what's up with the offensive line? Is it coaching? Is it scheme? Are the players not talented enough? In his opinion, he told us the players are definitely talented enough. The scheme, the problem with the scheme is that the offensive line coach who's coaching it has never coached in a zone blocking scheme before. And we kind of got to talking about how this coaching staff was put together and how, in hindsight, it may not have been the brightest idea for a rookie head coach to have a rookie center, a rookie quarterback, a rookie play caller, and an offensive line coach who had never coached in a zone blocking scheme before, which is what everybody knows. If you're in the Shanahan tree, if you're running the Shanahan offense, that's the type of blocking scheme you're going to be doing. All that being said, though, it is what it is. The Texans are 8-5. I really don't care who plays left guard tomorrow. Just block and play well and protect CJ, and I will be happy with whatever the name on the back of your jersey is. I will not care. And not tomorrow. I'm sorry, Sunday. Today's Friday. On Sunday, I don't really care who is playing left guard as long as it's the best left guard on this team. I don't care if it's Kenyon Green, Zach Thomas, Kendrick Green. I don't care if you have to put Juice Scruggs out there on one leg. Whoever is going to be the best, please just play good football and let's take advantage of the opportunity that the Texans have to do something that they've never done before. I'm predicting in this game that they are going to win. It's not a must win, but I think it's just really important. If you want to go into Kansas City on very, very short rest and have confidence going into that game, you cannot lose to the Miami Dolphins. Yes, the Miami Dolphins are a good football team, but you should be as good, if not better than them. The Texans are favored by 3 points at home. That's kind of a given. My prediction is that they will win 24-21 and they will cover that spread. Ruben said it was going to be 33-30. I just can't trust this Texans offense that they're going to put up a 30 burger until they do it. And I hope they do. I listen, you guys know me. I will be the first person to admit when I'm wrong. I just don't see them throwing up a 30 burger. And I won't believe they're going to do it until they do it. But the state of the Houston Texans, even with the suspensions of Azeez Al-Shaair and the injury to Jalen Petrie, listen, they're 8-5. It's going to be really difficult at this point for them not to make the playoffs. It would take a disaster for them not to make the playoffs. And I'm just not even going to put that juju out there. You have an opportunity to, at minimum, win as many games as you did last season, which I would consider this season a success if they win 10 games or more, provided that they win more than one playoff game. And I told you guys, they could go in at 9-8. And if they win 2 playoff games, this season is a success. But in order for them to be able to do that, they're going to have to be playing their best football going into this last stretch. So my hope is that they get a win versus the Dolphins, and that propels them with confidence into the Kansas City Chiefs. And you guys know that I feel the Baltimore Ravens are gettable. The state of the Houston Texans is good. It is good. Come back next week after the Dolphins game, and I'll tell you if that changed at all. But the state of the Houston Texans is good. I'm very, very much looking forward to this game. I'm super excited to watch it, and I'm super excited to talk to you guys about it after the fact. Let us do, please, the state of the Houston Astros. Label. All right, the big news coming today. The Astros have traded Kyle Tucker. Sometimes I say Cal Tucker, not on purpose. They've traded Kyle Tucker to the Chicago Cubs, who, if you're an old school Astros fan, that kind of pisses you off because that was our National League nemesis for a while, at least the National League Central nemesis, them and the Cardinals. And we kind of ignored the Brewers because the Brewers were always irrelevant. But the Astros Cubs used to be a pretty good rivalry. But I guess it's better to have them send him to the Cubs where he's in the National League and he's not going to come back to haunt the Astros anytime soon, I don't believe. Not only because he's in the National League, but I think this trade is a sign that the Houston Astros are getting ready to hit the reset button. And I'm all for it. I called this before this season, last season even started. Now, did they get the right haul for Kyle Tucker? That is yet to be seen. They pick up Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wazensky, who is a pitcher, and Cam Smith, who is a prospect. Now, Isaac Paredes, I believe he has big league experience. He is an infielder / outfielder. Hayden Wesneski, is a pitcher, and Cam Smith is one of the better prospects coming out of the Chicago Cubs. I'm not going to pretend I know anything about them. And even if I did know anything about them, what you guys know in these situations, it's pretty rare for you to get equal value when you're letting go of somebody as good as Kyle Tucker. So as we sit here today, it's real easy to say this, but a lot of people feel like the Astros got fleeced. And maybe they did. Maybe you could have gotten more. Now, if any one of these guys turns out to be anything close to what Kyle Tucker is, then you say, hey, we paid those guys a whole lot less money than we would have had to pay Kyle Tucker. And we got 3 for the price of 1. I think the Astros have made the decision they are not going to be in the business of handing out 10, 13, 15, 18-year contracts worth almost $1 billion like we saw Juan Soto get from the New York Mets. Fred from In-N-Out Mobile Services, what's up, buddy? He is in the chat on YouTube. He says, I hope we don't lose Bregman. I guess this move maybe makes you a little bit more hopeful, but from everything I'm hearing, Bregman and the Astros are not close on years or the dollar amount. Bregman would hurt a little bit more, not just on the field, because obviously, Kyle Tucker is probably the best player on the Astros right now. So it definitely hurts on the field losing him. But as far as off the field and just sentiment, Alex Bregman's rookie season was 2015. Yeah, he was a rookie. Or no, I apologize. He was a rookie in 2016. It was Carlos Correa. His rookie season was 2015. But he's one of the fundamental core of the Houston Astros. That was just, he is the fundamental piece, one of the fundamental pieces that built the Astros to be what they are today. And I've said this a million times about Alex Bregman. In the regular season, he's a good to sometimes slightly above average third baseman. But in the post, dude is a beast. And I think that is worth something. You know, the Astros didn't want to pay Carlos Correa either. And you guys know how I feel about Carlos Correa. He was the same thing. A good, solid, sometimes slightly above average shortstop in the regular season. In the post, he was a beast. And that is rare. So rare. We as Astros fans, we know 2 of our most beloved players, this may seem like blasphemy, but Jeff Bagwell and Craig Biggio, we love those guys. They were wonderful regular season Astros. Hall of Famers. They are in the Hall of Fame. They deserve to be there. But they sucked in the postseason. They were awful. And I would pay any dollar amount necessary to keep a guy who was good to average in the regular season and a Hall of Famer in the postseason. And that's what I think that Alex Bregman is. Now, Alex Bregman, he's not old. Do I want to pay Alex Bregman millions of dollars in 10 years? Absolutely not. I think the Astros would be smart to not do that. It's really hard in the moment. But imagine if the Astros had given George Springer his contract. You guys would be screaming for somebody in the Astros organization to trade George Springer right now if he was still on this team. The Astros were smart not to bring him back. Now, George Springer was already, I think he was 24 years old when he came up. And that's considered long in the tooth in baseball. I think he might have been 26 when he came up. He was much, much older. So I understand why the Houston Astros don't want to pay Kyle Tucker. And it's not that they don't want to pay him now. They don't want to be paying him in 15 years. Similar to, we've seen this happen so many times. Alex Pujols with the Angels. Carlos Delgado with the Mets. The fact that the Mets gave Juan Soto this contract is crazy to me. You have done this multiple times now before. Carlos Beltran, Carlos Delgado, Bobby Bonilla. The Mets are still paying Bobby Bonilla to this day. How many World Series have they won? 0. The Astros are not in the business of doing business like the Mets, like the Yankees. It worked out for the Dodgers this time around, but let's face it, the Dodgers have completely underperformed. Considering the amount of money that they've spent over the last decade to have 1.5 World Series to show for it, I don't think the Astros think that's worth it. The Astros went to the World Series, 4 times? Won 2 of them? Were in the ALCS for 7 straight years? And were they paying anybody almost $1 billion in the course of that time? No, they were not. I don't think that that's how the Astros are going to do business. And if you're an Astros fan, you should be happy about that. Are we going to have to go through some tough times again? I don't think the Astros are going to have to go through nearly the amount of tough times we went through, from 2011 to 2014. I don't think it's going to get that bad, but you might want to get used to the Houston Astros maybe not making the playoffs or maybe not winning their division. I think they'll still be a playoff team just because they let so many teams in the playoffs now. But the Astros just aren't going to do business like that. Going back to the chat, Fred says Correa and Springer both chased the bag and it didn't go so well for them. No, it didn't. And it went pretty good for the Astros to not pay them. Now, in my opinion, I would rather have Correa than Pena. That's just me. Pena had a decent bounce back season last year. And he's still, he's not even that young. He's young, but he's not that young. He was a little bit one of those older prospects when he came up. He says the Dodgers are still loading up with players. Dude, there's no salary cap in baseball. And my thing is how long can that last? Because if you have an owner who's willing to pay the triple, double, quadruple tax like the Dodgers are, like the Mets, these dudes have money hand over fist. They're willing to pay all the extra taxes and penalties. At some point, they may want to consider putting some type of cap on these baseball teams because it's going to get ridiculous. Eventually, somebody's going to get $1 billion contract. That's essentially what Ohtani got, even though they're paying most of his contract under the table. It's just nuts, man. I don't think the Astros are going to do business like that. I think they want to make smart deals. Now, it's yet to be seen. Did Dana Brown make a good deal? I don't know. I can easily go on MLB The Show and see what type of players I can get for Kyle Tucker, but I don't think that's a good judge. But yeah, I don't think the Astros are going to do business that way. I think they're going to try to do things similar. Like I said, I don't think they're going to have to lose 100 games a season for 3 years straight. But they're going to try to make shrewd Moneyball type moves. Which is why, I was kind of shocked that they paid Jose Altuve, because they're probably going to be paying Jose Altuve more money than he's worth by the time he gets to the end of his contract. But they feel like Jose Altuve. Jose Altuve is Jose Altuve is the greatest Astro to ever play in an Astros uniform. You can fight me on that all you want. You'll be wrong. Jose Altuve is the best Astro of all time. And he's actually won an MVP, which Kyle Tucker's come close to winning an MVP, but he's never won an MVP. Alex Bregman has come close to winning an MVP. He's had a MVP season, but he's not a perennial MVP candidate. And Jose Altuve had been that and still has the potential to be that, I guess. And that's the reason he got paid. The question is, who's next? If you're going to lose Bregman, you've already lost Tucker. Who's next? Probably Framber Valdez, if I had to guess. Maybe the Astros will do what it takes to keep Yordan Alvarez. One of the advantages, and I don't even like saying it, but one of the advantages of some of these players who come from South America, Central America, Mexico, Venezuela, they're oftentimes willing to take less money than American players because honestly, they're just happy to be here. So maybe the Astros are able to find a team-friendly deal for some of those guys. But I mean, if you're Alex Bregman, you've won 2 World Series. You've won a Gold Glove now. I mean, your stock is really, really high right now. You should go out and get your bag. I know you want to stay in Houston, but look, man, all your buddies went and got their bag. And no, maybe they didn't get back to the World Series, but I'm sure their lives are just fine. And the 2 World Series rings that you have, they'll still polish up real nice sitting in that trophy case. So I don't blame, look, I know Bregman wants to be here, but I don't blame him if he goes and gets the bag. I don't blame anybody for that. But I think we need to get used to the fact that the Astros are going to bring up really, really talented players. They're going to pay them while they have control of them up until the point that they don't. And at least, as my man Craig mentioned when I posted this on social media today about this trade, he said, hey, at least they didn't let Tucker walk for nothing. That's true. At least we hope it's not for nothing. A lot of people who know more baseball and know more, about prospects and, the minor leagues are saying that the Astros got fleeced on this deal. That's yet to be seen. We'll find out. I think that I think I'm okay with the way the Astros are handling this. I said at the beginning of last season, you should see what you're going to get, what you can get for Kyle Tucker while his stock is high. Is what they got going to cut it? Isaac Paredes, Hayden Wesneski, and Cam Smith? We'll find out, man. Look, if all 3 of those guys are on this team and you're back in the ALCS in 2-3 years, I think it'd be fair to say that it's worth it, right? At least I think it is. But that's just me. I know that I'm a different breed of fan in Houston. That's one of the reasons I started this show. As I was hopefully wanting to give Houston a little bit of perspective, maybe calm us down a little bit more, help us see the big picture. Yes, in this moment, it sucks. Kyle Tucker is a great player. He had some great moments as a Houston Astro, and he helped them win the World Series. I also, unpopular opinion, I don't think he's one of those guys who was great in the regular, or okay in the regular season, and great in the post. I think he's been great in the regular season and just okay in the post. And maybe that's why the Astros didn't want to pay him what somebody's going to pay him. I don't know if it's going to be the Cubs because they still have control of him for this year. I can't imagine they'd give up what they gave up and not try to re-sign him. But maybe he'll end up somewhere else. Who knows? But the Astros have just made it extremely clear the way they're going to do business. And it is not going to be to pay these exorbitant contracts. Who has gotten a big bag like that other than Ohtani recently and won the World Series? Christian Yelich didn't win a World Series. Juan Soto, he got a big bag from, what was it? His first big bag came from the Padres. And then now he's going to the Mets. You think the Mets are going to win the World Series? Hell no. So, I don't know. Nobody who's gotten these stupid contracts have won anything. And that's why I think the Astros look at it and say, that's not how we want to do things. We want to build winning franchises the winning way. And I think they've done that. So I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. Wish you best of luck. And Chicago, that probably means that Chicago is getting rid of Cody Bellinger. Could Cody Bellinger come to the Astros? We'll see. It's yet to be known how the Cubs are going to handle that. But all in all, I would say that the state of the Houston Astros, it's a little bit in flux. There's some uncertainty of where exactly is this team headed. Are they trying to win next year, or are they trying to reset for a couple of years from now? We'll find out. We'll see how the Bregman thing goes. We'll see what happens with Framber Valdez. I've heard rumors that they might want to bring Verlander back. If you're not trying to win a World Series and you don't think that Verlander can help you get back to the World Series, there's no point in bringing him back. He's one of the greatest Astros pitchers of all time. He should go in the Hall of Fame as an Astro. Let him ride off into the sunset. If he wants to go play for somewhere else and chase those 300 wins, let him do it in another jersey. I think that it's time for the Astros to try to move forward. And I think they can be right back in the thick of things in just a couple of seasons if they play their cards right. So the state of the Houston Astros, not necessarily strong. Like I said, it's in flex. But all in all, the State of the Union in Houston is very strong. And I thank you guys so much for continuing to join me every week for the Houston Sports State of the Union. I want to remind you really quick of the ways that you can continue to support this show. One of them, and you've been doing this entire time. You watch, you listen, you share with your friends and family. Please remind them to follow, like, subscribe wherever they get their podcasts fixed. If you don't watching your podcast, the audio version of this show will be ready and available within 25 to 30 minutes of this live stream ending. And also the other ways you can support is by leaving me a tip on my tip jar. If you're able to scan this QR code in the corner there, go ahead and do that. If you're not, I will shortly have a link to the tip jar in the description of either the video you're watching or the audio you're listening to. You can click that and leave me a tip. If you leave me a tip of $50 or more, I'll send you some Houston Sports State of the Union podcast swag. Remember, I need you to screenshot your donation to that tip jar and send it to me either at hsstateoftheunionpod@gmail.com, or if you follow me on the socials, you can hit me up in my DMs and send me that screenshot. There are also affiliate links that I will be putting in the description. They are Amazon links to Houston Sports fan gear and the equipment I am using to bring you this fine show. Anytime you purchase anything with those links, I get a commission from that. And all of that money goes back into the show so I can continue bringing you guys great content. Lastly, I do have sponsorship available if you're interested in sponsoring the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast or the Twin Toros podcast. I would love to talk to you about representing your business and growing our businesses together. Once again, thank you guys so much. If you joined me tonight, Fred from In-N-Out Mobile Services, I appreciate you so much for joining in on the chat. I love talking Houston sports with the city of Houston. I hope we get the opportunity to do it again. I will see you guys next week on Friday for the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast. I'll see you Tuesday at 7:30 on ESPN YouTube channel for the Twin Toros podcast after the Texans game. In the meantime, you know what I want you to do? I want you to stay 10 toes down for H-Town. I love you and good night.
This has been the Houston Sports State of the Union podcast, hosted by Nick Stevenson. Tune in next week for more news and analysis of your favorite Houston teams. Please follow the show on Facebook, Instagram, the app formerly known as Twitter, if that's even really still a thing. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel for more content.